On my video about sexual non-concordance and traumatic coupling, somebody asked, how do we turn it off? Not 100% sure if they meant how do we turn off traumatic coupling or how do we turn off non-concordance. Just a reminder, I'm not a therapist or any other type of professional, so take everything with a grain of salt. But my understanding is that non-concordance is a very natural thing. It is something that anybody can experience. It is not just something that happens from trauma, and I don't really think that we can turn that off. But in that video I was talking about how a lot of times for people who have sexual trauma, we end up having traumatic coupling related to our non-concordance, and things can be decoupled. Decoupling things, or kind of like reducing triggers essentially, or like detaching the trauma from non-traumatic parts of the experience, can be done through trauma therapy. I really believe in the memory reconsolidation concept, so parts work, other bottom-up therapy modalities like AEDP kind of update things that we learned during the trauma. So if we look at traumatic coupling as something that we learned, I think the example I used in that video was if somebody is essayed on flannel sheets, then they might find sheets to be a trigger for them, flannel sheets to be a trigger for them. Basically, that person would have learned that flannel sheets are dangerous, or that they are somehow correlated to SA, which isn't the case. And so that somewhat false belief could be updated through memory reconsolidation and therapy. But also part of what makes things coupled is just having a really strong correlation in our mind. If you smell a certain brand of fabric softener and immediately think of your grandma because she always bought that, then most likely she was like the only person in your life who always used that brand. Because if your mom also used it and your aunt used it and you worked somewhere that used it, then it's not going to have that strong of a correlation to one specific person, because you have a whole bunch of different memories of that smell and only some of them are your grandma. And so with traumatic coupling, that's not the case. We really hone in on, again, I'll keep using the same example, flannel sheets and this SA. So then often after trauma, we will avoid flannel sheets or whatever the non-traumatic part of the traumatic coupling is, because it triggers us. But if we can be aware of our window of tolerance and slowly and safely work on it without completely re-triggering ourselves, but expose ourselves to flannel in safe, grounded moments, then over time we can learn that flannel sheets can be lots of other things and not just correlate them with the SA. I think to safely do that on your own, you have to be familiar with your own window of tolerance and have good grounding skills and things like that. So I think sometimes that doesn't really feel doable on like a individual basis. But again, that's something that if you were to get into therapy and to talk about that, like a good trauma therapist would be able to help guide you with. But another possibility is like kind of depending on what the traumatic coupling is and what problem that is causing for you, you may not need to decouple it, even though sometimes it feels like we need to. When I first realized that I had some traumatic coupling related to my CSA traumas, I was really distressed about that. And basically, I think like literally asked my therapist, like, please tell me that this can be uncoupled somehow, because like I like need to hear that. And he said like it is possible, and like, you know, explain some of what I've already said in this video. But he also said that like when people first realize traumatic coupling, it's especially related to sexuality, it's easy to feel like, oh, I need to erase this, when sometimes it doesn't really need to be erased. Sometimes we can add to our sexual experiences in positive ways and just kind of leave that where it's at. I guess I'll just keep running with the same example. If somebody really doesn't like flannel sheets, like, it's okay to avoid flannel sheets. Like, most people aren't ever going to have to be around them. Have intimacy with your chosen partner on cotton sheets or silk sheets or whatever fabric appeals to you, then it's okay to just leave it as it is. And even if what was traumatically coupled for you feels like something more general, sometimes it's still okay to just work around it. For example, maybe somebody has traumatic coupling around male condoms. You could use female condoms. You could use other forms of birth control, other forms of STD prevention. And same thing with specific types of like intimate acts. I'll stay super PG here, but I'm sure you can come up with your own examples. But like, if kissing is traumatically coupled for you, that doesn't mean that you can't have physical intimacy in a whole range of other ways that are still deeply meaningful to you and your partner and that bring lots of goodness. I think sometimes it's easy to feel like we need to be normal. And a lot of times, there are lots of different ways to meet the same type of need or to create the same type of feeling or the same type of connection between two people. And so, yeah, not to say that you shouldn't or can't work on decoupling things, but I do think it's easy to like lock in on our triggers and think, oh, I need to fix this, when sometimes we can just kind of ignore that one piece and find lots of goodness in lots of other ways that meet all of the same needs or all of the same functions.